I noticed you have like the cat with the hand back there and some like
Yeah.
Buddha stuff going on. What is that all about? Are you just like super spiritual or?
Yes, very spiritual. So the cat is actually from my grandma. So my grandma's Buddhist. She's the
Oh,
Japanese side of my family. So
okay.
this is like a little homage to her. And then this little statue in the back is actually a recent anniversary gift from my husband. So it's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but it's
Yeah.
kind of the evolution of like the female experience and the divine feminine, and then
Love
kind of the
that.
different stages that we go on throughout life. And the whole idea is eventually that you encompass all three of them. So it's not abandoning any of those things, which I think Western culture does a lot, which is like we get old and now we're not desirable anymore and somehow we're lesser than. And in like the old age, like the old days, that wasn't how we looked at it. We're like an older woman
Right.
is wise. She still has this wildness about her. There's still something like, polar like like a gravity that kind of like pulls people in, like she's still very enticing even in her old age, so it's not giving up on that proclivity. It's just like a more well-rounded version of what a woman is supposed to be.
Ooh, I actually really, really like that. I mean, I've heard the story before, but I don't think I've ever appreciated it as much as how you just kind of talked about it because like I talk a lot about not leaving the old version of us behind because we all have like different I call it like your 2.0 self or like your posh spice if we're being like really fluffy or your higher self or however you want to call it. But I feel like through every layer of our journey, we're like gaining wisdom, learning things about ourselves, learning things about the world. We're meeting people, we're in different seasons of our life. And sometimes at least for me as a woman, I tend to shame past versions of myself for decisions I've made or things that I did or things that I said or how I treated myself. But what it all comes down to is like hindsight is hindsight for a reason, right? Like we're always making these making the best decisions for ourselves in every single season of our life that we think is the best decision for ourselves right then and there. But I feel like that what you just shared is really about encompassing all of that and just really embracing like every season for lack of better words,
And
right?
how powerful is that, right? Because
Right?
no one has figured out the secret serum to stop or reverse aging. That is going to happen. We are all going to die at some point.
Right.
For some reason, I think it's a lot harder for women to understand and like come to grips with losing that youthfulness.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of just reframing your purpose and what is going to excite you, and what's going to be like your driving force moving forward. Because I mean, if you look back even to like, let's say your teenage years and then your early 20s and then keep going to wherever your current age is at, like your motivating drive, like that main energy that's pushing you forward or propelling you forward is different, right? Like
Yeah.
there's different motivators, and there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing wrong or shameful about it. There's this thing that, I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Crone, but he's like like a mind Jedi master. He's
Ooh.
really fascinating.
That
I highly
sounds right
recommend
up my
him.
alley.
He's incredible. And he says when you like look back at things, nothing else could have happened because it didn't. And to me, that's just that really resonates with me. I'm like, okay, let's stop wasting energy because we can't change the past, but how can we make a
Right.
lesson out of this and move forward to be our highest self, or as you said, our posh spice.
You know what? I use Posh Spice because, like, obviously, like, she's the alter ego of Victoria Beckham,
Mhm.
and Victoria Beckham's like for me at least, is like the ultimate woman. Like, she is a mom, she's a wife, she's got this empire, but like the alter ego of herself, like, struts her shit on stage with like the boots up to her hips, and she's got like all the confidence in the world, and she's like, "Look at me, I am like the queen of the universe." And for me, I'm like, how empowering is that? Like, you
Mhm.
can be all of these things and, still and still be like, you don't have to just choose one. It could be like everything all in one, which is such a beautiful feeling to have, and such a awesome thing to like aspire to. Because for me, I used to think that none of those things could coexist together. Like, I couldn't be sexy and also be a mom. I couldn't be an adventurer and also like have like a stable family, like all of these things. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
100%. I think we have to just realize our potential, and that is limitless. So you get to create the life that you want. You know what I mean? I was just on Twitter the other day, and someone was, I hate these TikToks so much. It was this older woman. She was in her late 40s, and she was like fake crying and holding like these $100 bills to her fake tears, and like, me crying over not having children.
Yeah.
And like, this is how successful, and I'm like this boss bitch, right? And why? Who said we had to pick? It's like I
Right.
have several companies I invest in that are very successful. I have two kids. We just went to Austin, Texas for a retreat with Aubrey Marcus held. Then we flew to Miami where I was on a panel with Pomp, like at this huge Bitcoin like futuristic convention with Kathy Wood as the freaking keynote speaker. My
That's
kids went
amazing.
my kids went to all of it and it was amazing. And I understand like there's expenses and blah blah blah, but you can create the life that you want. Like your kids can be a beautiful addition to your adventure. They're not going to take away from it. It's all in your approach. So anyone who's making you choose or telling you that this is like a finite game just has like a very limited mindset, and you need to get those people out of here. Like they're not serving you at
Snip, snip,
all.
snip, right?
Yeah, see you
Yeah, cut
later.
those cords. It's so interesting you said that too, because in so early 2020, right before the pandemic happened, I had actually gone to Toronto for one of my first certifications. So I'm certified in NLP, EFT, I'm a master hypnotherapist and success coach. But I had gone for my first certification to Toronto, and I had this like deep belief that I couldn't be a mom and a business owner all at once. So I started my business in 2019, and my husband and we got married in 2018, and we were like talking about having kids, and I had such resistance against it because I wasn't where I wanted to be in my business yet. And then 2020 came, and I still wasn't where I wanted to be in my business, and I still wasn't ready for kids. And I'm thinking to myself, like, am I ever gonna have that? Like, I'm so ready for like all of the things. And my mentor at the time asked me to, and this was like the most powerful thing ever. She's like, can you envision, like, who's your higher self? What is she doing? Is she the business owner? Like, what is like all around? And I did this visual, and I was like, oh my God, I am the business owner. I'm changing lives, but like, I'm also surrounded by my family. And she's like, so if you're surrounded by like kids, your family, like your husband, your mom, your sister, all of these things, and you're a business owner, don't you think that by not embracing all of that together, like you're actually holding yourself back? And I was like, oh my God. So I had like this integration that happened. I'm like, I can have it all. Like I can do both. And I'm not like, for any of the listeners out there, I'm not telling you to like go out and get pregnant right now and have kids so you could have an amazing business. But for me, I realized it was like almost this sense of self-sabotage where I was like not purposely, but purposely not taking a step in any direction because almost like this fear, right?
Hmm.
So it was just such an interesting thing. So I think what you just shared, it's like you can have it all. And like when you embrace it, you're literally stepping into that like higher version of yourself. So Candice, can you just, after I just went off on that huge, like crazy tangent, can you let our listeners know who you are, what you're all about, just so they can get like some insight as to who we're talking to today?
Yeah, so my name's Candice Horbacz. I'm the host of the Chatting with Candice podcast, and it gets into all sorts of topics. I kind of find a curiosity and dive super deep into it and then move along. So it's just whatever is kind of catching my attention for like that week, that month, whatever it is. We've been diving a lot into like feminine, masculine energy, what that means with spirituality, sex, intimacy, romance. I actually just had Vylana Marcus on, and that was incredible because she is just like this goddess. We talk about, someone just like owning their womanhood and just, I
Yeah.
am the queen of the universe. That is Vylana. So that was a really exciting episode. I was in the adult industry for over a decade, so that definitely lends like a very specific perspective to a lot of my growth as an individual and how I see relationships, and just like my own personal development, because obviously, as you can imagine, there's like a lot of trials and tribulations that come with that decision, whether it's interpersonally or with my marriage or with society or now having kids. So a lot of forced learning and forced
Yeah.
evolution, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing. So I think like, so with all of that, how have you like fully embraced like all the parts of you? Like for me, I know going through everything that I've gone through for quite some time, like I used to feel like I had to incorporate like, you know, the because I'm in recovery for an addiction, and with drug addiction comes like other things too. And then I, you know, I'm a corporate dropout. I have gone through a lot of other things in my life, and like I always felt that they were separate, like they weren't like integrated with who I am, and I kind of just like kept it separate. How have you like encompass or like kind of just embrace like all of it to fully embody like your femininity today?
It's there's so many ways to answer that. So one of my favorite quotes is by Nietzsche, and it's I'm paraphrasing it because the
Okay.
man's a poet, but it's essentially be careful when you cast out your demons that you don't throw away the best parts of yourself.
Mm,
And for me, I love that quote so much because it talks about integration, right? Like it's not rejecting the shadow side of you or the darker side of you or maybe the parts that need to be more developed or fine-tuned. It's integrating all of that and saying like this is also a part of me. And then
yeah.
how can I control that, understand it, master it, and not let it master me. So
Mhm.
when it comes to like something like sexuality, for example, and this is a huge dichotomy that a lot of women have, which is I can't be a mom and also be sexual. Like who
Yeah.
says that, right? Like that's kind of a newer idea. Like the thing that led you to become a mom was your sexuality, was this creative force, was the ability to quite like literally surrender, open up, and like give life. So
Yeah.
those things are very closely tied together. And I don't think that that part of you is supposed to die off and wither at the vine. Like that's your life force.
Right.
So I think that we put on different kind of like different jackets throughout our day, right? Like there's times where I'm mom and like that is my sole mission. I'm not doing that right now. If I was in my mom mode, I'd be a terrible podcast like guest. I'd be focusing on like is the diaper changed? Is he napping? Like
Right.
all of these things that would be kind of taking over my mind. So it's integrating it. It's like a whole person and I'm allowed to show up in different areas as a different Candice kind of, but they are all the same thing. So it's something that Mark Gaffney says all the time, which is like true but partial. So like, I'm Candice, yes, an individual, but I'm also Candice the mom, and I'm also Candice the wife, and I'm also Candice um, the podcaster, and I'm also Eva, which is my alter ego, and she's like this sex goddess, right? And that's a
Yeah.
very different energy. So I think first and foremost, it's removing the shame and just accepting that you are a flawed human, and everyone is a flawed human. And then you are also totally capable of changing anything that you don't like and upgrading and becoming the best version of yourself. So instead of focusing and using all of your energy on like, I shoulda, coulda, would've, like, how can you show up today as like 0.1% better? And what's something you can do there? And for me, removing that guilt and shame is paramount. Like, start there and kind of understand where it's coming from. Is it yours? Is it someone else's? Is it something that society's putting onto you? Like really get down to the first principles of what that emotion is and then work through it. Because a lot of our programming is just default. Right,
Yeah.
like a lot of our beliefs, our values are default, and it's not to say that they're like throw them all away, absolutely not, but just like understand why and consciously choose what's important to you and your family moving forward. And I think that with that, a lot of shame, guilt, resentment, whatever it is, will kind of start to wash away.
Yeah, totally. No, for sure. Like with like all of the beliefs and values and all of those things, they are default. They really are because, you know, our parents are the ones who are raising us. And as kids, like we don't have a choice as far as like what beliefs of theirs are imposed upon us, right? So I really, really like that. I think having the different jackets or the different hats that you wear throughout the day. So like before we even press record on this episode, I was saying to you, like, I think this is going to be a really healing topic for me today, because something that I noticed, and I don't know if it's, like, it's so hard to like talk about sometimes too, because there's like this part of me where I'm like, I just fully want to like embrace like my sexuality with my husband and like, you know, just get my freak on. But then the
Mhm.
other part of me is like, but what if the kids wake up and what if this and what if that? And then he'll come home from work, he'll like grab my ass and I'll slap him away. Like, and it's just like this default thing that's happening. And every single time I do that, I'm like, what the fuck, Amanda? Like, why do you keep doing it? But I'm not correcting it. And I feel like there's almost this part where I'm like, well, what if Julian sees? What if Cameron sees? What is he going to think of that? Or what are they going to like, what if they see us kiss in front of them? What are they going to like, all of these like spiraling
You don't
thoughts.
even
Like,
kiss in front of the kids.
I mean, we do, of
Oh,
course.
okay.
He'll come up to me and I'm
Yeah.
just like, at first, like when we first started doing, Julian would get really upset. Like my older son would get
Mhm.
upset because he's like, she's mine, you know?
Mhm.
But my husband was like, no, like here, this is what we're doing. And sometimes I'm like, you're going to piss him off. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's my husband and I love him. And Julian and Cameron were both created because I do love my husband deeply and fully. But like, I know I'm not the only person who deals with that sometimes. So like coming from someone who's like super fully embodied, I feel like, what would you say? Like, what's something that I can do to like just embrace all of it? Like, I feel like there's like, it's so hard for me. It's hard to switch hats. I feel like I'm just like in mom mode, covered in spit up all the fucking time. And like, how is that sexy?
It's not gonna be second nature for a long time. We just had our
Yeah.
second, so I feel you. It is putting in the work like anything else. Like, do you want to be, let's say, we'll talk about business for a second, right? Like, everyone wants to be a seven-figure earner. I want to be a seven-figure business owner, seven-figure podcaster, whatever it is. Like, are you trying to show up that same way for as a wife or as a mom? Like, do you value that the same way? So, are you putting in the work there and like the hours there? Like, I don't, when I get done breastfeeding and my hair is all crazy and I feel like I smell like milk, that is not the time that it's going to be successful. No, like for me, primping is like super important. So setting that time away for me to like dry brush and put oil on and, put on perfume and put on a sexy outfit. It's crazy how just like putting on different clothing will quite literally like change your, almost like your personality. So for
Yeah.
the first time in like a year, because of pregnancy and then postpartum, I put on like actual lingerie for my husband and just rocked his world. And he was just
Hell
like,
yeah.
I feel like we haven't done this in so long. And I'm like, we haven't. And a lot of that is my responsibility too, right? Like I just wasn't feeling myself. Like
Right.
this postpartum recovery was a lot more difficult for me than the first one. And something as simple as putting that outfit on, even though like I still have extra weight and extra dimples and like it's not the body that I am used to seeing, it put me in the place that I needed to be to show up for him as like his wife and like this goddess that can now like rock his world and have a great time and make sure
Right.
my marriage is healthy. And then also when it comes to the kids and like that aspect, we kind of know that what we model in front of them is going to show them what healthy intimacy looks like. So it's
Yeah.
almost your responsibility to be intimate, like obviously within reason, in front of your kids. Like whether it's caressing, kissing, cuddling, hugging, all of these things are like shaping what they should be expecting from a romantic relationship. So if you have mom that's like very standoffish or dad that's very avoidant or cold, like that's kind of what they're going to seek out in a partner moving forward. And is that what you want for your kids? Do you want a boy especially that's like so out of touch with intimacy that he can't form a deep emotional bond with a romantic partner?
Right.
That's setting them up for disaster. So I look at it as like our responsibility to cuddle, to flirt, to be playful in front of them. That way they can have that when, they're looking for a life partner. So to me, it's like paramount. Like you have to do it. Do it just as much as you value your business. Very, very, very important.
I feel like as you're saying that, I honestly, I got like chills from like my shoulders down to my wrists. I'm like, oh my God, because I teach this all the fucking time. Like I teach modeling. I teach how we speak to ourselves as how our kids are going to integrate, but never one, and I don't know how this is possible, but never once did it cross my mind that how I'm modeling my relationship with my husband is going to really set the tone for their relationships for their entire life. Like, I'm so careful with like how I speak to myself and how I speak to Brett and how I speak to my kids, because I know that that's going to become their internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought about it from the relationship perspective, which makes perfect sense because at the end of the day, like you said, you're going to switch into some sexy lingerie and like oil yourself up and stuff right before you're going to like rock your husband's world. But like, you're not going to show up as a CEO in sweatpants to go give a keynote speech,
No.
right? So like, it makes sense. It makes
Mm-hmm.
sense that like just those little but not little tweaks are going to make the most profound difference in your life.
Yeah, and I also think it's important for you, especially when it's like the opposite sex with your kids. It's important that like they understand that you're also like you're his wife and
Yeah.
he's your husband, like if you were to have daughters, like that kind of thing, because there is that jealousy and that's super normal. Like kids go through it, girls go through it with their dad, boys go through it with their mom. But I feel like moms, and I'm guilty too of this, we're like more reluctant to like let that go or like let that lesson be learned. Like, no, I'm his wife, like I'm your mom, so like you need to get through these big feelings that you have right now,
Yeah.
because then you kind of end up with that mama's boy that is now kind of comparing every future woman to his mom. And you know what I mean? Like he's not actively finding his best mate. It's more like, oh, well, how does she stack up against my mom? And like mom hasn't necessarily moved down on the totem pole, which is our job at some point,
Right.
unfortunately, right? Is to
I
like
know, it's like
slowly
thinking
move
about that, I'm like,
ourselves
oh my God,
down.
that breaks my heart.
It is, but then that's also time where you're supposed to be focusing more on yourself and on your marriage and like,
Yes.
becoming each other's first priority. So like you're shifting from, you know what I mean? Like our priorities are always shifting and our relationships are always shifting, but it's like a healthy shift that needs to happen with between mothers and sons. So again, it's like another reason why it's important to like be close and intimate and playful with your spouse in front of your kids, because like no, like this is my husband, this is my wife, and like this is the pecking order, not the other way around.
Because at the end of the day, and this is something my grandma used to say to me all the time, is like your husband should always come first. And I was like, okay, I get it. And after, like, I love my mom to death and I loved my father to death. However, their relationship isn't a relationship that I would ever want to model. You know what I mean? Because of it was just very turbulent, and it didn't feel like a relationship that I would want to eventually have. And mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I love you so much. And I know you are the best mom in the entire world. And you are always doing amazing things. But like what it all came down to was what my grandma would always say, like, make sure your husband always comes first and like before your kids. And I'm like, but how? Like my mom always put me and my sister first, which I so appreciate. But like, look how the marriage ended up. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like you raise your kids for 18 years and then the kids leave. And then what? Like you're
Mm-hmm.
strangers in a home together.
Right.
So something that I am really proud of myself for, I feel like you'd be proud of me for this too, is that me and my husband have been making it a point to do like date night and like date each other again, because
Yes.
through it all, like you kind of lose that, at least for me, like we were losing that sense of, like you said, playfulness with each other. So like a couple of weeks ago we went to have Indian food in this little town that's close by, and then we went to an arcade and they had like this like old school arcade with like Nintendo games and Pac-Man and like all of the fun things, and we had the best time. So we're like, okay, we have to go again. So 2 weeks later we went again, and now it's like a thing and it's so much fun. But at first I was feeling guilty for like leaving the kids at home and, going out and just being like, sayonara, peace out, not a mom right now. And it's just like, I felt like it was almost like this renewal,
Mm-hmm.
and then I don't know if this is TMI, but this morning, I was like, okay, like we gotta work on this over here. So I went to European Wax Center, not a sponsored ad, I know. But I got it all, figured out there. And I texted him as soon as I got to my office. I'm like, we're good. And he sent me a like little eggplant emoji back. So I'm like, all right, we're on the right path now. But like, I feel like sometimes it's so hard once it's I don't want to say lost, but once like you kind of like get out of your regular routine of not like before kids, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
different now. It's just
Mm-hmm.
different. So it's kind of like just refinding that groove and refinding your before kids playfulness again.
Yeah, I think so much of it too is this expectation that it's supposed to just happen organically, and that's just not how it works, unfortunately. Like maybe in the honeymoon phase, but if you want someone that's till death do us part and you're seeing them not look their best, not feel their best, not act their best, it's like it's very hard to just have that organic butterflies fireworks all the time. Like you do
Yeah,
kind of have to set the stage. I would say to up your homework and do it weekly instead of bi-weekly. I would
I
say
can
at
definitely do
least,
that.
yeah, at least once a week.
It's really hard to get someone who wants to like cover bedtime
Yep,
for a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old
yep.
sometimes. but we do have family members that are close by that are like willing to be there as soon as at least one of them's down to sleep.
Or
So
do a date too. You
true.
know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be fun, a day
Mm,
date.
yeah.
Wow, that might be nice. Yeah, we did like a brunch date 2 weeks ago, which was kind of fun. So after I just like laid it all out there for you, was there like a defining moment for you that you were like, you know what, something needs to shift here because I'm feeling out of whack? And then maybe like a step or two that you took that allowed you to like rekindle, maybe not even just rekindle, but really like spark the flame so that there are fireworks again in your marriage.
Yeah. So, and I mean, if this can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, right?
Anybody, right?
So, we had our second baby, and I feel like I don't necessarily know that it was postpartum depression, but it was something really, really close to that. And I don't have a tight network. I don't have like a crazy female tribe around. Like all of my girlfriends, like they all work, so and they have like really taxing jobs. So I didn't have people that were just here taking care of me like we used to back in like the tribal days, right? Like you would never have a woman have a baby and then be by herself. That would just not happen. You would be surrounded by like wise women that were there and taking care of you, nurturing the mom and the baby. Like we
Right.
leave the mom out entirely in this culture, and it's just so fucked up.
It's so
So I was going through that, and my husband was like rock star dad, could not have been a better father to our older kid. Like he showed up, he didn't want our oldest to kind of feel slighted or that
right.
like he was getting any less love or attention, and we knew the demands of a newborn, so he was sleeping in our guest room so that he could get a full night's sleep to be there for our oldest.
Right.
Seemed like a great idea. Well, now we're like 2.5, 3 months in, and I mean, the baby's still not sleeping. He's up every hour, hour and a half. Um, and it's crazy that just that little shift of not sleeping in the same bed made us feel so distant. That plus my hormones, I just felt like I had no one that was on my team. I felt like my husband just wasn't seeing me. I would see him and just like my blood would boil. And then that's when I knew there was something wrong because I was like, there is literally no one on this planet that loves or wants the best for me more than that man. Like, there just isn't. So if I feel that he's against me and if I feel like this, like, total almost like repellent towards him, then there's something going on with me. So I think the first step was like radical honesty within myself and being able to take accountability and not blaming him, not saying like, well, he's getting sleep, how dare him, and he's not taking care of me, right? It wasn't so much blame, it was more like there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
um and then I just had to like look at what did I need, and it's like I needed community. I needed support. I needed to change my habits. I needed to ask him for what I needed because he just didn't see it.
Yeah.
So presenting it in a place where like I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Like I am drowning here. And then trying to prioritize my sleep, understanding that my physical body doesn't have to be perfect to be lovable or desirable, and that's more on me. Like he never once made me feel bad about the baby weight that I have on me. That was something that I just self-prescribed. And why? So like getting out of my own trap of having to be perfect, because I'm never going to be, and I'm never going to be 25 again either. So like just embracing the body that I have right now, and then like doing what I need to get it to where I want to be. So that's like, again, sleeping, hydrating, moving more, working on my stress management. So all of these things I'm doing, but at the same time, I can still love and appreciate where I'm at. And then doing something selfless, like putting on the lingerie, even though I'm like super self-conscious and don't want to do it. And guess what? We both had a great time for it. I was able to be the best version of myself in that place, and he had a great time. So it's just
Of
it's
course.
checking in with yourself and seeing
Yeah.
what you need and where that deficiency is. Almost like how do I bridge that gap from where I am to where I want to be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like as you were talking just now, I honestly feel like you were telling my telling my story because I just had baby number two also. And I did feel super alone, and I felt almost like that I was I wasn't being seen. I wasn't being heard because all of the attention was on my older son. So he was feeling like he was a part of and just as loved as, you know, which he is, of course, just as
Mhm.
much as baby number two. But like as a 2-year-old, sometimes like they don't have that logic to know that like this is a brand new baby, like he needs attention right now. And I too found myself almost like building up this resentment against my husband because he was getting the full night's sleep and like here I am, like I haven't showered in 3 days, like, but that's on me. I haven't showered in 3 days because I'm not asking for help. And you know, I'm just like seething almost. I'm just like, you get to
Yeah.
leave and go to work. And like here I am taking care of kids all day long. And like, yeah, it's, you know, both is work, but at the end of the day, I I think that like having that open communication and like what you said, that radical honesty with yourself, like thinking about like, what is it that I need right now? Because how I'm feeling isn't going to end well for anybody. Like, it's not
Mhm.
going to end well for this marriage. It's not going to end well for my kids. It's not going to be good for me. And especially for everything that I'm creating, because what we feel like literally infiltrates all areas of our life, right? Like, if we're not feeling like thriving at home, like how are we going to come to work and just like put on the game face? It's going to be under like bubbling under the surface somewhere and come out at some point, right?
Mhm. No, so
Yeah.
what he said to me during this, it was like one of my moments where I was just sobbing to him and just saying like how alone, isolated, just like like in over my head I felt. And he's like, "Babe, ask for support, not permission." And I
Yeah.
was like, whoa. Like I felt like I had to ask for permission to shower or to go take a walk by myself or to nap by myself when all I had to do was just say, "Hey, I'm going to go take a nap. Here's the baby." And he'd
Yeah.
be super happy to do it. Like again, it's like our mind works against us so often and then we believe it and we're like, "What evidence has this man given me to suggest that he's not going to show up or be supportive?" And it's like we
Right?
become our own worst enemy. So ask for support, not permission. Like just say what you need and your partner is going to rise to the occasion. And if they don't, then that's a bigger problem that you guys
I was just
both
gonna
need
say
to
that
get into.
that's a
Yeah.
bigger red flag than you need to I think probably needs to be addressed. But that ask for support, not permission. Everybody write that one down because I sometimes feel like that's the dirt or the angle that I'll come from and I'll be like, "Hey, is it okay if I schedule a yoga class on Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m.? It's breakfast time for them." And I'm like, no, it is okay because like we both created this family, like we're partners in this. Like he can do what he wants, I can do what I want, as long as we're a team and we're doing it together. Like
Right.
we're both coming up to bat, we're both putting in the work, and we're both really supporting each other, what it all comes down to, right? Because like how could any of the fireworks happen if there's no communication or feelings of support and being seen and being heard, right?
Yeah, and movement's huge. For some reason, I think that's the first thing that we write off, especially like in that newborn phase. We're like, "Oh, well, that's the first thing that goes. I've got to do all these other things." It's like, no, that's the number one thing you need to do is move because you're going to get your
Yeah.
endorphins. You need to kind of balance out your hormones again. Like you absolutely need to move. So that needs to be a priority for you and your husband during that phase.
Absolutely. You know,
Mhm.
my sister calls me a psychopath because I have a 5 a.m. Morning, like I go to the gym and my class is at 5 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. And if I don't get to the gym, I feel like my whole day I'm kind of just like in this like not negative mindset, but more like I didn't get to do much for myself. And like those morning hours, at least while like the kids are sleeping and Brett's sleeping and stuff, I find that I'm really able to just like pour into me and like overflow so that I have the time, the space, the energy to pour into everybody else. And like I heard the other day, like it's important to pour into ourselves so that we're overflowing because it's always like this exchange of energy where we're pouring out, but then pouring in. So like that overflow of just like showing up for you and like all the things that are important to you are probably one of the most, it's like the most important thing. Like, and sometimes, as moms, we feel guilty for that too. It's like this like cycle, right? This cycle that happens. Nuts.
No, it is, but you're right. It's like if we're not a whole person already, we're operating from a deficiency. So,
Yep.
like, what does your husband deserve? What do your kids deserve? What do you deserve? Right? Do you deserve to be operating at a deficiency, or do you deserve, and does everyone else around you deserve the best version of yourself? And then what does that look like? And not all of it is bubble baths and beautiful sunny walks by yourself. Some of the stuff is like going and get a serious sweat on, right? Like doing difficult things to challenge yourself and kind of keep yourself sharp in all areas of your life. So yeah, I mean, absolutely fill up your cup and then worry about everyone else's.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, go to the gym, do that workout, get your sweat on, go for the wax if that's what it is, put
Uh-huh.
that lingerie on, take the shower, shave your legs, whatever it is that is going to make you feel like you showed up for yourself today and like that you're really embracing that full version of you because that's what you deserve, right? You fucking
Absolutely.
deserve it. We all deserve it. We deserve it, and our family deserves it too for us to show up for ourselves. I feel like that's like the overall theme that I got from like today. So if anyone wants to come and visit you, where can they find you? Is there any like last thoughts that you want to leave with our listeners today?
Just thank you so much for this conversation. It was awesome. I hope that the listeners had fun and got something out of it. And if you want to follow me, you can go to chattingwithcandice.com or it's Candice Horbacz on all the socials.
Yay. And
Yeah.
we will have those linked below for you guys to easily access that. Candice, thank you so much for this conversation today. I feel like I talked myself through some of my own. It's funny because I used to be like that person who curses like a truck driver, and now Julian repeats everything I say, and he's using like talking context. But I find myself like kind of paraphrasing. I was just about to say the mind monkeys going on in my head. I'm like, that's not how I feel today. But like all the like it was just like a lot of chatter. And I felt like today's conversation was really what I needed. So thank you so
You're
much. And
welcome.
I feel like the universe works in funny ways where like it was today that this conversation happened and it was for a reason. So Candice, thank you, thank you, thank you. Listeners, remember, you are you, and that is your absolute superpower. I love you guys so much. Leave us a comment below or a review below. Go visit Candice, and we'll talk to you next week.